The king sat on his throne of bone and gold. In his hand, not a sword, not a scepter, a single black feather. Outside his window, 3 ravens watched him eat, watched him speak, watched him breathe. And the king did not give orders. He listened to them. Because somewhere in the mountains, before the first kingdom fell, before the first crown was forged, humanity learned something terrifying. The ravens were never just birds. They were witnesses, messengers, judges. And their language? It was older than ours, stranger. And according to the myths of 3 separate continents, it could bring down a king. So here is the question the scrolls buried deep beneath Europe and Siberia and the American Northwest all ask the same way. What did the ravens hear? And why did the powerful live in terror of being named by them? Imagine a world without writing, before ink, before paper, before any human could record your crimes or your betrayals. How did power survive? Through silence, through loyalty, through the careful control of who spoke your name. Now, imagine that control was impossible. Because in the forests, on the battlefields, outside the king's own window, there were eyes that never closed, voices that never forgot, and a language that crossed between worlds. From the cedar forests of the Pacific Northwest, to the frozen rivers of Siberia, to the mist-soaked hills of ancient Ireland, kings, chieftains, and shamans all shared the same quiet dread. Not of enemy armies, not of famine, of the raven's tongue. Why? Because in almost every tradition, ravens didn't just mimic human sounds. They carried witness. They could describe what they saw to
something older, something that listened. And if a raven spoke your true name in that ancient language, you were no longer invisible to the gods. That is not poetry. That was policy. Let us go to the first place the fear was carved into stone. Northern Japan, 8th century. The Ainu people, ancestors of the island's first inhabitants, tell stories of the kamwis, spirits who wear animal forms. Among them, the raven, Chironap, holds a peculiar role. Not quite god, not quite beast. A mediator. In one cycle of myths, a village elder commits a secret crime. No human witnesses, no evidence. He thinks he is safe. But a raven perches above his hut for 7 nights. Each night it repeats one word. The same word. The elder's real name. By the 8th morning, the elder is dead. No wound, no poison. The story says his own spirit could not bear being fully seen. Now travel west, 7,000 kilometers, to the Norse. Odin, the All-Father, does not send eagles,
does not send wolves. He sends 2 ravens, Huginn and Muninn, thought and memory. Every dawn, they fly across the mortal world. Every dusk, they whisper everything they saw into Odin's ear. Not symbols, not metaphors. In the Viking worldview, those ravens spoke, and what they spoke was judgment. Here is the mystery that terrified kings from Dublin to Kiev. If Odin's ravens report everything, and if all ravens are his children, then no throne room is private. No whisper is safe. No betrayal goes unrecorded. But the Norse were not alone in this fear. Let us cross an ocean to a place no Viking ever reached. Pacific Northwest, the Haida and Tlingit nations.
their creation stories do not begin with a god in heaven. They begin with Raven. Not a bird sent by a god. Raven was the god who created the world by stealing the sun, the moon, and the stars. But here is the detail most forget. Raven could only create because he could name. In Haida tradition, to know the true name of something is to hold power over it. And Raven knew every name. Not because he learned them, because he listened to the world before humans existed. Now here is where kings became afraid. The Tlingit tell of a chief who tried to execute a prisoner in secret. He ordered his own warriors to speak no word of it. But a raven had perched on the longhouse roof. The next morning, the entire village sang the chief's name in a mocking tone. The raven had taught them the melody. The chief lost his authority within a moon cycle, not by war, by shame. Siberia.
The Koryak and Chukchi peoples. Their shamans describe a language called Corvid, not human, not fully spirit, a language spoken by ravens between worlds. The most feared phrase in any shaman's vocabulary, Kaiga Nene. Roughly, the wing remembers. If a raven spoke that phrase while looking at you, it meant your actions had been recorded in a place no human ritual could erase. Archaeologists have found raven bones buried with human royalty in the Altai Mountains, not as food, as witnesses, as if the dead king wanted one last pair of eyes to testify for him in the afterlife. But here is where the mystery deepens. In 2017, a team of cognitive biologists discovered that wild ravens can remember human faces for years, and they teach those faces to their offspring, and their offspring teach their offspring. The ancient shamans described exactly this. They called it wing memory. The scientific paper called it long-term cross-generational facial recognition in corvids. One is poetry, one is data. Both say the same thing. Ravens do not forget who you are, and they tell their children. Here is what the myths never say directly, but imply everywhere. The language of ravens is not words. It is observation turned into story. Among the Celtic traditions, the Morrigan, goddess of war and fate, often appears as a raven. She does not fight. She watches the battle, and her cry determines who lives and who dies. Not because she chooses, because her cry reveals what is already true. That is the hidden meaning kings feared. Ravens do not lie. They cannot. Their language has no future tense, only past and present. So when a raven spoke your name with a certain tone, it meant you have already done what you will be remembered for, and it is not good. Now hold that thought. Because what happened next, across 3 continents, across 5,000 years, defies coincidence. Scotland, 6th century, a real king, Aidan mac Gabrain. According to the life of St. Columba, Aidan once asked a druid how to protect his kingdom from betrayal. The druid said, "Train no spies, build no walls. Instead, learn the raven's dialect." Historians dismissed this as folklore for centuries, until 2021. A linguist and an ethologist published a comparative study of raven calls across 17 cultures. Their finding? Human languages that lived alongside ravens for more than 5 centuries all developed the same grammatical structure for reported speech, a way of saying, "I saw that," versus "I heard that." In other words, ravens did not learn human language. Humans learned a raven's grammar of witness. The twist? Aidan's kingdom lasted 40 years, twice the regional average. His enemies never surprised him. And when he died, the oldest tales say ravens circled his grave, but made no sound.
Silence, in the language of ravens, is the highest honor. So what did ancient kings truly fear? Not that ravens would attack them, not that ravens would curse them. They feared that ravens saw them clearly, and that the raven's language, older, more honest, immune to flattery and lies, would speak that clarity into a world that depended on royal secrets. Here is the deeper truth the myths guard. The language of ravens is not a secret code. It is the grammar of being watched by something that cannot be bribed. Every tradition, from the Haida to the Norse to the Ainu, arrives at the same terrifying conclusion. Power requires invisibility. You must be able to do things no one sees, say things no one records, be one person in public and another in private. Ravens collapse that distance. They are nature's original truth tellers, and their language is the sound of consequence. That is why kings feared them, not because ravens were strong, but because ravens were true. And a king who cannot lie to himself
cannot rule. You do not fear ravens today. You fear something else. Cameras on every street, phones in every pocket, algorithms that remember every search, every like, every 3-second pause before you scrolled away. You call it surveillance, data collection, the digital panopticon. But the ancient king would have one word for it: the raven's tongue. Because the feeling is identical. The feeling that somewhere in a language you do not fully understand, everything you do is being recorded and reported. The difference? You cannot hear the modern ravens. You cannot bargain with them. You cannot tell which one is watching right now. But the old myths offer an antidote. Not privacy, not encryption, integrity. The kings who survived longest, according to the stories, were not the ones who silenced ravens. They were the ones who lived as if they were always being watched. Because they were. And so are you. Raven sits outside your window now. Not the bird, the witness. The old name-speaking presence that has watched every empire rise and every king fall. You cannot kill it. You cannot bribe it. You cannot outrun it. You can only decide, what will it see? Because the language of ravens has only 2 dialects. One says, "I saw what you did when you thought no one was looking." The other says, "I saw what you gave when no one could repay you." Same grammar, same wings, same ancient witness. But only one of those stories survives the night. So here is the question the kings could never answer. When the raven speaks your name, what will it say? If this mystery moved something in you, the next story is darker. It involves a wolf that was never born and a language that was never meant for human ears. It is called The Silence Before the Howl. You can find it on the channel, or you can wait. The ravens already know you are curious. They are watching.